Hey, y'all, welcome back to another Tuesday episode of Lead Generation and Conversion Training. I'm your host, Jason Will, qualifying broker at Blueprint Realty Company. We've got a special guest today, Colin Krieger with Remax over in Mississippi. Um, he's a mega agent, typically at the top of the list of Remax agents in Mississippi. And he's a busy man, so I really appreciate his time. And I hope you guys do too. And a way you can show him your appreciation is to be fully engaged in this conversation. You know, we got a lot of people with their cameras off. I get it. You may be still in your pajamas, but that's part of the problem, right? We're here to motivate you and give you some insight on the path that you should be on. So without further ado, let's introduce Colin Krieger, or let him introduce himself rather, and tell us a little bit about himself.
Hey, how you doing, campers? I'm Colin Krieger. I'm over here in Columbus and Starkville, Mississippi, just across the state line from Tuscaloosa. We've got an Air Force base here in Columbus, community college, a regular college, and then we're right around the corner from Mississippi State University. Starkville is about 20 minutes down the road. Our MLS is 9 counties, though, so it's a pretty big MLS for Mississippi. Not in terms of agents, but it's a big expanse as far as driving if you want to cover it all. And then, the Starkville and Columbus markets are pretty radically different. Starkville right now is sitting at probably 60 days on the market. So a lot of stuff selling really quick, about $280,000 house average. Columbus is more like Everytown, USA, $190,000, $200,000 average, and more like 90 days on the market right now. We did real good during COVID, but right now we're trucking along. No huge slowdown from everything. The interest rates killing certain price points, but that's the market. And I've got a wife and 3 kids, 3 teenage daughters now, so pray for me. And we live in downtown Columbus in an old historic house. We've got about 400 antebellum and Victorian houses here. The city was spared from the war because it was a hospital town. And we're originally from New Orleans, so we've been up here since Hurricane Katrina, almost 19 full years ago, next month at the end of August.
So I've got a quick comment about that. Again, I'm going to try to restrain myself a little bit this morning and let Colin talk, because it's really, really important when somebody else comes to the table and says similar things that is extremely successful. But I think it's a good point to note that Colin has, I think, the production, the notoriety, the local celebrity of one of those hometown, homegrown agents, but he's not. He's from New Orleans. He's an outsider. And now he's just like, he's been there his whole life in the Columbus area. So I think that's really important, because he's established that through the teachings of, GaryVee. We're going to talk a little bit about that, or a lot about GaryVee maybe this morning. A lot of people don't know Colin. A lot of people don't know who GaryVee is. I'm telling you, like, when I get in front of a new agent I haven't talked to before, I'm like, do you know who GaryVee is? And they're like, nope, never heard of him. But I'm trying to think. Let me look real quick. I just Googled GaryVee, but his when he spoke at Inman Connect San Francisco, that was 2016. So Colin, is that around the time that GaryVee got on your radar, or was it a little bit sooner?
It was before that. So I'm about to hit 10 years in August. So overnight got up to 10 years, or 10 years in October. So in October of 2014, I went to a software assisted sales conference in Atlanta because GaryVee was speaking there, and I'd seen him on, YouTube and all these other places, just looking for sales training and motivational type stuff. And it was good for me to see somebody the same age as me embracing Facebook. And at that point, I hadn't done much with housing, but I was doing what everybody else was doing, which was posting a picture of me leaning back with my arms folded in front of a house and how proud I was of that. And I bought the little VIP ticket to see if I could meet him. And I sent him a message about a week before, because back then his claim to fame was like, hey, I read every email, or I read everything. So I picked a time where, like, he posted something on a Sunday morning and not a lot of people liked it. I had an email ready, sent him an email, sent him a tweet to alert him. And he responded to it, and it was just about how we had a similar upbringing, and I had grown up selling baseball cards and other stuff in high school, and just needed some general advice. And he's 4 days older than me, which I think primed his brain to remember me. And then he saw me at the show, and that guy, D-Rock, his documentarian, his photographer, had just started. And I had the VIP ticket. So we talked a little in the hallway, and then I went into the room, and nobody else bought it. And he had a book coming out that day, and he still at that point had one phone. So I got to spend about 45 minutes with Gary backstage in a room, literally. And he was, as I say, he was unarmed. He didn't have a phone to distract him. I think that time now would cost you about $75,000 to get an hour with GaryVee. And it was good because he looked over my social media, and, he said, see if I get that frame. Less of this, more of this. Less selfies, just document other people. And he calls it the social mayor campaign. And the funny part is I didn't talk to anybody about that, but I came back from there and immediately started taking pictures of other people, taking pictures of local businesses. Even when I was just handing out my flyer for real estate, which I still do now, I'll go to a business and say, bring some cookies, have a house that's 150 grand for the front desk person, 250 for the nurses, and 500 grand for the doctor. But then, hand the cookies and the flyer to the gatekeeper, get the nurses out there, take a group picture, mention how awesome they are. And that's it. Nothing about real estate, nothing about me, no selfies, anything like that. And over time that grew into, we have a business page called Good for Business with Eric and Colin Krieger. Eric's my brother. And so we started doing just photos. We still really don't do video, and it's just new restaurants opening, good people in town. I hear somebody gets promoted, we'll stop by there and just say they're awesome. And we've had several of those in our market, which is about 25,000 people in the city, or 60,000, maybe 50 in the county, I guess, total. We've had several stories get 1,000, 1,500 shares. Last year, we had 2.5 million unique visits to our website, and we put the whole story on Facebook. So if they're going to our website, they're looking for other good news. Nothing about real estate anywhere on there at all. So that was one component of the social media stuff that I learned from Gary, other than honestly that your work-life balance is your business. I get to work every day at 5:30, get to the office, so that by the time I get to 9 or 10, I got time to do this or shake babies and kiss hands or one of those. But so that I have time to go out in the community and do stuff and visit. The second part of that was my wife and I were up from New Orleans, and we were throwing some parties at our house, like little small backyard gatherings. But after that, when I became a realtor, I decided that we should start throwing bigger and bigger parties. And the parties got bigger and clients came to them. But we had 5 in 1 year, and all 5 of those now aren't at my house. They turned into big fundraisers at other events. So we have an October Beer Fest. We have a St. Patrick's Day party that's the biggest one in North Mississippi. And it led me to meet restaurateurs who wanted to help host them, and all the people from the charity aspect of it. And so the charity helping the community things I've got more awards for that than I have for being a fancy realtor. And then on the realtor aspect of the business, Mississippi, it's not unique, but it's a pain in the butt. We have they call it a one-click rule. If you do anything real estate related, it better say Colin Krieger Realtor Remax Partners. So, your friends are interested in what you're doing, but they're not interested in that house you just listed, generally speaking. My first year I had 35 transactions. The second year was 45, third year was 55, then 75, 80, like in COVID 107 that year, something crazy. We're still referring off another 20 listings. And now where I'd like to be is 75 or 80, which is where I'm headed this year. Any more than that, I kind of refer them out. But the social media strategy purely from real estate, please, every time I speak at a conference, people go to my Colin Krieger Realtor page, and it even says on there, this is the day-to-day realtor stuff. It's probably not advisable content for most realtors, but every day when I come to work at 6 in the morning or whatever, I take a video, and it literally just says I'm at work. And I'll say things on there that get 2 clicks, 3 clicks, or 100 views that people bring up to me every day. So there's people watching your stuff that the data doesn't show. And I can't tell you how many people constantly refer to that they know I'm at work at 6 a.m. And I literally just go on, hey guys, like today I'd be like, I'm dressed like a professor because I feel smart. Anyway, the Caledonia market's slowing down a little, and it's not a long video. I kind of mail it in on that. And my normal Facebook page is my regular stuff, which I'd like to say is, generally speaking, 10 to 1, one selfie with 10 pictures of other people.
So basically, what really would you credit GaryVee for starting you on this journey?
Well, during those 3 months, I'd been in corporate marketing before. I had owned a newspaper, a group of newspapers actually with some other people. But I was, during that October, November, December period of starting real estate, this was 2014. We were still 180, 200 days on the market. I just told somebody this the other day. I presented in front of my B&I class, and I called the person who gave me a listing, who gave me full credit for not dropping out of the business. So 90 days into it, I had 33 listings, 33 signs. They were all expired. I'd called 1,100 expireds, everything back going 1,500 years. No dialing system, nothing. Was calling strangers in every neighborhood every time I listed it, was knocking on doors, doing all that, and I had 0 closings. And I had made less than 6 figures since I was 23 years old. So in January that year, I had my first closing. I was about to quit, and because it's scary. If you're you're a man and you're trying to be the household earner and all that stuff, and I got 3 little sets of eyes looking up at me. But what got me through that, the GaryVee helped, but I was digesting so much stuff, at least 4 hours of content a night. Now I'm committed to an hour of education every day during the week, but it was like 4 hours. I was taking every class I could take, gimmicky sales stuff. I watched, I think, 60 something hours of Tom Hopkins sales training stuff. The 2 things that did stick out the most to me were from Gary, which was the social media campaign, because, I'm like maybe the same way I am about TikTok now or about some of these other things, that it was a little too much or a little overwhelming for, at that time, a 40-year-old guy or whatever, a 39-year-old guy, that you think Facebook was just for kids or just for, posting happy pictures or whatever. It was good to hear that, and good to hear his position on work-life balance, that, I have a lot of friends who are trying way too hard to look like they're not working that hard because they got to spend time with their kids. And I spend a huge amount of quality time with my children, and I don't really care what people think about it, because there's a ton of people who think all I do is go to charity events and run fundraisers and play on the news. And there's a ton of people who think all I do is obsessively work. Fortunately, most people to dominate their market, they only need 2% of the buyers to like them. They don't need 100% of people to love every last little thing they do. So yeah, Gary's up there. Once I went further on a quick career, I'm a big personal growth guy, especially now, but about 7-8 years ago, both Tony Robbins, Brian Buffini, Tom Ferry kind of came out of the woodwork and switched their modality. And I actually got to have a conversation with Brian Buffini about this, where they switched from 85-90% paid content, the complete opposite. Tony Robbins was the first person through the wall to do that. And he actually cited GaryVee as the one that told him, quit. The internet was changing in 2015 and 16. He said, you're charging for everything. Nobody knows what you're teaching. I think the most valuable resource for realtors, maybe not marketing wise, but as a business, Brian Buffini's got, I think it's upwards of 300 podcasts, 350 completely free, easy listens. The first 200 of them are all over an hour. The new ones are a little bit shorter, but just stuff that's helped me in finance and with taxes and retirement accounts and all kind of stuff. So I'd say he's a huge influence.
So after that conversation with GaryVee, are you just naturally motivated, or you came back to Mississippi and got started right away? Why? What was the catalyst?
I was already fairly motivated. I like headlines and money and attention, like any cold-blooded person at the core of their heart. But, I really did have 3 kids and a wife, 3 young kids looking up at me to make money. And I essentially, look, the first week of real estate, I didn't know that realtors could sell other people's houses. No realtor ever told me that. I post it 8 times a year. I have it scheduled on Facebook and other places that I post things your realtor wants to know. We can show any house listed by anyone. Doesn't cost you 20% down to buy a house. And by the way, we can show any house listed by anyone. And every time I post it, I have tons of realtors in our area post my post about that, because it's one of the most painful things to ever happen, especially when you're starting. Yeah, no, I mean, I was motivated by I needed the money.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So do you have a pretty defined schedule that you stick to?
Other than posting when I get to work, no. I know that, and that's on the Remax page. But for me, like as far as when I post, I know the times of day when stuff doesn't hit. Like Saturday's bad in our market. This stuff you read online, but it's a moving target for your crowd. I like to get something out before 9, but there's times I've had plenty of days where I don't post anything. Now I can say if you're able to go back and search in 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, there were 3 posts a day every day on my personal page. And at least one of them, and I have had friends who pointed it out, like one of them had that sign in the background. It wasn't even, hey, I'm at work. I post funny things that happen at work. Like I had a snake attack me once, and I've gotten my car stuck a few times, and it's just, everybody around here likes to make fun of me for being city boy. And then I stop into events, and a lot of lunchtime and daytime chamber of commerce type events. But the thing I do a little differently is that even back then, is I was just stopping in the same way the news would stop in. Take a picture of the ribbon cutting, who did it, whoever, and then I'd leave, as opposed to sitting there for 2 hours.
I'm on this soapbox a lot about realtors. If you want to be professional at anything, you need to put in the time for education. And really, in terms of my personal core values, learning has always been number one. Learning is what saved me from getting out of the business. You mentioned that you were close to quitting. Most agents I know of right now there's a lot of agents right now that are close to quitting, but they don't put in the time. They're not putting in the time like a professional golfer who wants to win a major, is putting in 3-4 hours a day of practice a day. Agents aren't doing that. Another really important thing that you said, which I'm sure people lost in the tangent, was that you are only concerned about appealing to 2% of the people in your marketplace, and your marketplace is very small compared to other agents across the country. I think when we started, when we first got into relationship with each other, your price point was well under 200,000, your average price point.
Yes.
So that I'd love to see that grow. But if you look at price point, you said the size of your town was what, like, what'd you say?
There's 23,000 people in the city, and the county's 45.
Okay. So I'm looking at somebody in this call right now that's got 100,000 people in their marketplace. So what could you do if you subscribe to what Colin's doing right now, and then you don't stick to the rules and you don't worry about schedule times? Here's what I hear from.
That's the document, don't create. Something that struck a nerve, which have been mentioned 20 or 30 times. First of all, the content is evergreen. There's still people who call me about our podcast in the basement when that hurricane was hitting or whatever. And the most common thing I get is where I tell you, like, I don't know if I can turn my camera, but there's a picture of my 3 kids looking at me when I'm at work. And I heard somebody on one podcast once say, imagine your kids are watching what you're doing all day at work, and would they be proud of you? And there's very few people who can answer that honestly and say the whole day I'm working, like that you're actually putting in. If you can just get 3 hours of honest, legitimate work, which is why I come in early in the morning, there's no distractions. I can tear through the list and send emails. You can get a ton done. And, as far as social media, like the document, don't create. It doesn't all have to be about real estate. You don't have to be in every picture. Anybody who's following you on Facebook, generally speaking, knows what you look like. But if you can think of your friends, like if you say right now, I've got 20 friends who would always recommend me, well, go to one of their places of business every week or just where they work and just say they're awesome. I posted something from 3 days ago that just said, Andy Hubbard's awesome. That's all it said. He's a kind and considerate man. That's it. 80 likes, whatever. But when I saw his wife, she was sincerely like touched that I did that. And I have that all the time where, like, a kid selling lemonade, you just take a picture of the kid selling lemonade instead of, that is a newspaper trick, if you think it's worth telling somebody, you better have a picture of it.
Mm.
As far as the news part and social media goes, most of the requests I get are, "Hey, Colin, what's going on with this?" I get a lot of calls that politicians should get, which is, "What's going on with the new amphitheater? What's going on with this new business?" And if it's a new business and there's a dude with a dump truck, I stop by and talk to the dude with the dump truck and ask him what they're building there. And if he wants me to, I take a picture of the dump truck and just say how awesome he is. And then that evening or night, I post a picture like, "Hey, I met the dump truck driver from Burns Dirt Construction, and they're building the new what are they building? Beef O'Brady's. And they haven't even pulled a permit yet, but I'm able to kind of break the news and be the media for that." And that goes back to the question of, what are you doing all day? I know in different markets that there's different things realtors have taken on that aren't their jobs. That's probably the price point has pushed that. Like, I've had ones in other markets saying, "Well, I have to meet the home inspector there and let them in, or I have to meet the appraiser there, or I have to meet the termite guy or the septic stuff." Our MLS has got them all not licensed, but they're all registered, insured to open our super boxes, and they have insurance and they get a little extra vetting. So for the most part in our market, I'm able to tell somebody, like, I'm not meeting the inspector there. And I was like, and I know that in other markets that's become common. And the more expensive the house is, the more you want to be there. But that will give you more time. I know you're trying to, either you think you're doing a professional service, but they're being paid for that too. Other people are trying to justify that they're providing value for their clients. And I think, as far as automated on Facebook, the only thing really I have going on is posting the houses, whereas when I get a new listing, I go in, or my brother will help me, and we'll create the post and then stagger it through every single for sale group. And I still use Craigslist, thanks to Jason Will. I get like 5 crazy leads a year, and then a couple legitimate ones because nobody else is on there, and I will post in the groups consistently during good hours, like before 9 o'clock or right at 5 o'clock, that sort of thing. I'll also do targeted ads. This last weekend wouldn't have been a good example with the president, but election night. It doesn't cost you any more to run ads on Facebook and Instagram or even TikTok on election night, and everybody's face is going to be that phone. Thanksgiving Day is another good example. Alabama home football games, like, people are on their phone and staring at their phone, and it costs you the same $50 to run a targeted ad. And if it's for your client, that's a great time to do it.
That's awesome. All right. So everybody on the call should be thinking about what they are committed to doing after this call, immediately after this call, and from this point forward. At a minimum, it's 1 hour of educational content consumption per day. We're recommending GaryVee. We're recommending Brian Buffini. We're recommending Jared James. We're recommending Tom Ferry. Whoever like speaks to you. So Gary spoke to Colin. Buffini speaks to Colin probably more than anybody else. Who speaks to you? It could be Kevin Ward. There's so many people out there. There's so much abundance and collaboration and sharing in our industry, which is one of the reasons why I love it. But you got to understand that if you don't put learning before everything else, there's a reason why, people are fond of saying the more you learn, the more you earn, because that is a fact. And you've got to get with it. You're not going to be on the leaderboard in your office or the leaderboard on the golf course golf course tournament or in the football rankings or whatever it is if you don't put in the time. If you don't put in the time, and then you need to focus on implementation. And, Colin's saying, like, he's committed to at least one post a day every morning around 9 a.m. And then he posts throughout the day just kind of randomly. When something happens, maybe. Is that correct, Colin? Am I saying anything?
Yeah, like if I'm at an event and I remember, or if I'm at a luncheon and just see a good waitress or a good piece of food or whatever, we take for granted the 10 or 15 likes or 30 likes and just think it's not a viral hit. I'm 48 years old, going on 100. I can tell you, in the year 2000, when I owned a restaurant in New Orleans, if I could have gotten 20 people to see my special that day, I would have flipped out, especially for free. And now we have all these different avenues that you have a little fan club, even if it's 10 or 15 people. If they get to know that you work hard, it helps. And then, like, again, doing this in real life, I feel very safe to say that I don't think there's any agent in our market besides me the last 5 years that's probably handed out flyers at businesses. Like we mail them, or you may do automatic, postcard, that sort of thing. You do social media ads and spend money. But like when you go in person and do that, you're meeting people in real life. I have tons of people who I've never met other than on Facebook, and then when I finally get to track them down and find them in real life, it's kind of neat. So, and we're in a small town. We're not even a big one.
And do you find that what you're posting on Facebook gives you credibility sometimes when you go into these businesses?
Absolutely, because a lot of them, especially the new ones that open, some of them you can go in there and realize they're not going to make it, and some of them are like local, little bitty barbecue places. But once you get enough attention for them, you start getting people going, "Thank you for helping them." And we did during COVID when they shut everything down, but the restaurants were still open. I did a put your money where your mouth is thing, where every day for a month I bought $100 worth of gift cards, not discounted, and gave them away. And you had to share the restaurant's page, not my page, the restaurant's page. And then the next morning we'd pick a winner. And the restaurants that are still around some of them, I have 4 or 5 restaurants in town that'll never charge me. And it was for something that simple and sincere, and it made me feel good. It's like put money in the kettle or giving somebody some money who needs it. It's a good feeling to do it.
Have you done any business with these business owners? Have you listed any business owners' houses or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's 2 of the restaurant owners are probably responsible for 1.5 million of sales just between their own private stuff. But absolutely, yeah. Now there've been, and look, as I tell people, I can't go back in time and grow up here. So 2 of my top 10 referral sources can't use me, but they do refer me. Mm-hmm. Like their sister's a realtor, they got to use them, but they refer me the business for everybody else.
God, I hope Blake Ray was listening to that. I can't go back in time and grow up here because, he and I are constantly pounding that rock about how the agents who did grow up in those markets have an advantage over the ones that didn't. And you can circumvent that. I mean, you can close that gap by being consistent on social media. All right, we got to get to go ahead.
Yeah, if you're promoting the community, I say that I can't go back in time and grow up here, but I'm trying to let everybody else know how awesome this place is. And so, if you're promoting it, and they say, well, I know the realtor, and like, okay, because I've done that with charity stuff where people have asked me like, hey, the hospital, I'm on the board of the hospital now, but they sent me an email saying, hey, we really want somebody to head this so-and-so. And I replied back to everybody in the email chain. I said, I'm happy to match whatever this real estate company does. And they're like, excuse me. I'm like, well, y'all have an exclusive thing where you send all your doctors to this realtor. I'll give you all my time as soon as they commit some time and meet me there. And it wasn't saying that I won't help charity, but it was saying like, why aren't these other agents promoting the community? Why isn't everyone trying to promote how awesome you are? And it's, you're not going to win a discussion if somebody's sister is a realtor. Like you're not, But I said, look, it's too bad you can't use me, but can you just tell people I'm awesome? That's something I learned from one of Buffini's trainings, which was you probably could do this now with a buyer's agent thing. If you think you're going to be in trouble with a buyer and they're not going to sign or commit to you, or maybe they can't. You say, listen, I'll fine if you have to go your separate ways. But I said, if you do, can you promise me within 24 hours of you breaking the agreement or buying a house on your own or giving up that you can connect me with 3 of your friends? You can say, it needs to be real estate related. It needs to be specific or whatever. I've told people that too. Like if I sell your house and under the average days on the market for what you're comfortable with, do you think you can just 3 people put me on a group text and just say, I want y'all to know Colin's a decent realtor and an awesome person. And that's it. That's the request. Not promise me they're going to sell their house with you, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, I just need you to tell people you're awesome. And what that does is you're setting an expectation that when they do break your heart and buy for sale by owner that they didn't call you about or whatever, number one, they know they did it. Like they know they broke your heart, know they used your time, which will be very clear now in about 30 days when that form kicks in. Ours kicks in 2 weeks. But that way they know you're setting the expectation. This is a big caveat, and I hope half the people on this show don't have it. I am now, a little chart, but I believe on my 11th deal in the last 3 years, from somebody that called their first choice of realtor, somebody they knew, or they just called them, and their voicemail said, "Hey, I'm so and so with Crackerjack Realty. My business hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and weekends by appointment only." And I have tons of friends who have it, including in my office and outside of my office. The next call was to me, and then I call them back or I answer, and they say, "Hey, do you work weekends?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Because I'm not dealing with somebody who doesn't work weekends." And that's what that voicemail stands. I've told everyone in my office who had it, it'd be much better if you talk to the people first, and then on your first consultation, set that expectation. Say, "Hey, I have 3 kids. My wife's had 23 surgeries in 5 years. Sometimes I'm not available, but it doesn't mean I don't love you." If that was my voicemail, it's killing people. And I know exactly where it came from. The lady from Shark Tank mentioned it about 6 years ago in a book, and a lot of people put it on it. And it's the work-life balance thing. But to set expectations in a business where 75% of the people want to look at houses after 5 and on weekends before you meet them, it's a little tough. And I'm sure people disagree, and that's their version of work-life balance. But there's a lot of business there, and there's a lot of people who get upset about that. And I just say, I have the same conversation. I haven't shown a house at night, maybe one in the last 2 years. And I do show on weekends, but I like to be Saturday or Sunday morning if possible. But I have that conversation with somebody once we've set the parameters and established that trust. Like Before this buyer's agency thing, I'll show you one house without a pre-approval. Happy to meet you.
All right, be quiet. All right, hush for a minute. I think we had a holy crap moment, and I just want to make sure. I really want to use the S word, but I don't know. I mean, I don't want to upset anybody who may have kids in the room. But so I want you to think about this, realtors that are on the call and realtors that watch the replay. How have you handled a situation, or probably several situations in the past, where you've had a buyer buy a FSBO or go to the new construction community and register without you, whatever the case may be, back out of a contract, not renew your listing, and then you ask that person to just tell somebody, or at least 3 other people, that you're awesome? I mean, how did you handle that? Most of the time it's like this. See ya, like you disloyal SOB. I don't know, Colin, where does that come from? Is that something you were taught? Is that just something that you have to be born with? I mean, because most of us are like, see.
Oh, I mean, until I heard Buffini say it, and it was more specific, where he was like, "Hey, we're starting this process now." He would say, "If you're satisfied with the listing and the photos and description I put out, could you think of 1 or 2 people?" And he had like 3 exchange points during the transaction where you would say, "Hey, he never brought up if something goes wrong." I don't know, I thought of that or whatever, but I just thought, like, wow, we've got 60% government backed loans. A lot of deals go wrong. Shouldn't I get something out of it? That may be the upside of this new buyer's agency stuff, that you'll have some fees you might get back if somebody walks away from a deal after an inspection or something, but that, I'm going to be at least 50 or 60 hours in the next 30 days on that. I've signed up for like 7 different seminars for the buyer stuff, and I've already heard stuff from other agents where, like, it was an hour and a half long group conversation. There was one thing I took out of it that'll help with the buyer's agency thing.
All right, pause there. Got another thing, and then we've got to get to Q&A. We're going to run way over time. I can already feel it. But we got to get this in. But I want to ask, I just want agents to ask themselves this, or reflect on this. With the changes that are coming in August, what have you signed up for? We had the Birmingham Association of Realtors offer the ABR class for free. We had a number of our agents sign up. I was the only one that showed up. And a big part of that ABR class was how we're going to be moving forward with our representation of buyers. And agents just couldn't give up the 2 days, even though they'd signed up. And this, this is supposed to be a social media training class, but I'm like, the big part of this is learning from other agents, learning what they're doing, how they're being successful. I'm preaching a lot of different platforms, especially YouTube, which I'm, from what I've gathered, Colin, you don't have a presence on YouTube.
That's one. And, now that I've been on TV for 6 months pretty consistently, there's been more people recognize me there, and there's some YouTube clips from there, and it's definitely helped, like the traffic. But it's a good testimony from being in a small town. And look, plenty of people use YouTube here. Not a lot of people locally use it. It'd be a monster, and I should do it. But I've made thousands of posts that are just photos where I barely had to talk to anybody, where I didn't have to take a selfie and be embarrassed about how I look or how I sound. I didn't have to learn how to edit stuff. I didn't have to have the right camera, go to the right seminar, or do all this stuff. I just took pictures of people with my phone the same way you take pictures of your friends, and it's been wildly successful. I mean, I can't imagine how much more successful it would be when I do start doing videos. But that's what I think a lot of people are afraid of, is the TikTokification of how beautiful some of this stuff looks. If you're promoting other people, it's less worrisome. I don't care if they're ugly. I don't care if their hair is not perfect. You're promoting them to make them feel better, and their family. And every time you do that, their family is going to like you a little more, and it might be a little more likely for you to win the conversation if you're up against somebody else.
And if you're in this, we start consuming this content about what Colin's saying, you'll hear this phrase that, the best way to elevate your brand is to elevate the brand of others. Tell other stories. There's a lot of people in your communities that, have been in wars, have overcome extreme poverty to be in the position they're at today. One of the things that Tom Ferry does at his conferences is he brings out his coaching clients that are have cancer, but are still closing 100 transactions a year, even with dealing with chemo. And it's like, what are you doing? Colin's wife has had 23 surgeries. Is that what you said over the last few years?
Yeah.
That's a big distraction for most of us. I think we would probably clock out or not be able to clock in because we're so overwhelmed. But again, Colin says his motivation is looking at the picture of his daughters by his desk every day, focusing on what they're going to need. They're all getting, to the age where they're going to need cars and money for tuition and, all kind of stuff. And so he's like, man, I need to be, I'm responsible for these people. Like, they're going to be looking to me for provision, and I got to provide it. And I'm not going to be able to do that by sitting on my hands. I need to get out and take action. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be scripted. And it's better that way because it's more authentic. All right, Colin, first question I've got in the chat is, what is your favorite business or real estate book? If you had to pick one that our audience should buy, read, get on their Audible, what would it be?
I'll have to look. You're sitting on top of books right now. What's Gary Keller's? The One? Is that Gary Keller?
The One Thing. Yep.
Yeah, The One Thing is probably. I'm more of even though I've read all the traditional personal growth books, I think the one by Gary Keller was pretty sharp. Now, there's some stuff that's probably not relevant in it, just like anything. I've been listening to a lot of older YouTube clips of Earl Nightingale and other people, and there's some stuff they throw in there that's not there. Now, the one is only, I think, 9 or 10 years old, but I think it's pretty strong.
All right. Well, if you had to, had a gun to your head, what is your one thing that you're focused on? What's the one thing you are just totally focused on? What's your one thing?
If we can say cuss words on here, I won't. I am quoting GaryVee on that, but don't act like you care. Actually can care. Like, quit pretending that you're worried about this. Quit. The hardest part for me to look at realtor stuff is market stats, and we've all done it, but they say days on the market and percent change. And I printed up one that I put out once and sent it to my 50 interior clients and called them. I said, you get my little mail piece? They're like, yeah. I'm like, I got a question for you. I said, do you know what it means? 0 for 42 of the people I talked to, the 50 I mailed. They're like, what does it mean 0.5% change from last month? I don't, of what? And some of them don't even explain what days on the market are. That isn't relevant to that, but if you care about gaming, you don't think you can build a business off being the gaming realtor? We talked about this last time. I sponsored our Comic-Con that was in our region. Mm-hmm. And this was Comic-Con, the brand. They called me from corporate Comic-Con and said, you're the first realtor to do this. We've been around 21 years. Why are you into this? I'm like, no, my brother is. And I set up a table. I think 1,500 people came through the day. I had 8 closed deals that year, because this was a very specific segment of the market. Guess what? A lot of like if I was in Huntsville, Alabama, and I wasn't not a sponsor, I'd organize a Comic-Con in Huntsville, Alabama, because that's what those people are into. They're engineer-based people. Guess what? They also, even if they're broke and never going to have a house, they care about their kids. And you just endorsed and cared about their kids, you know?
One of the things I'm really trying to get across in this call is like, you're succeeding at a high level, but you're not doing a whole lot. I mean, you're not on the YouTubes, the Snapchats, the TikToks. But imagine if you were, and that,
Yeah.
and
I'm doing a lot. As I say, I'm doing a lot in real life. And there's nothing wrong with doing it the other way. I meet a lot of people on the ground, going to these events and promoting these events. And I do organize a lot of them, which is like there was not a Comic-Con. So I called the two nerds I knew and said, hey, how do we throw a Comic-Con, And it was step this, and we did it,
All right. I have a person on the call right now that is, I would say, very interested in politics, and it's an election year. So I've been telling people, like, no matter what side of that fence you're on, go volunteer at a political campaign. You're probably going to get a deal or two out of that. And these people, they just don't do it. I don't know why they don't do it. I don't know why they don't take this advice, but would that be something you would recommend, or what are some other ideas of?
Yeah, I mean, people look at that the same way as that I'd stick with local. The bigger you go, the more likely you are to upset, somebody you love or one of your clients. But if you're just helping somebody, you'd like this. Stephen Jones, who's a councilman in my office, is running for mayor. And the mayor is a friend of mine too, and his wife is my wife's boss, and they're good friends. And we're going to have it next year. Who's Colin get endorsed? I don't really put signs in my yard, but you can go to everyone's event and take pictures of them. Same thing, in most towns, it's easy to get to the mayor. The last time I was in New Orleans, I just went down to the mayor's office. I got to talk to the deputy mayor. I'm like, if I wanted to talk to the mayor for 5 minutes, I don't own any property here or whatever. And they said, well, if you want to schedule something about a month out, anybody can get 5 minutes. I'm friends with our congressman here in town, never given him any money, but everywhere I go, every time I see him, I take a picture of him, say how awesome he is,
Right.
that he's trying.
But how do you go to the mayor's office or wherever, the fire chief or whatever, what does your ask sound like? Like, hey, would you mind me taking a picture of you, or how does that work?
Yeah, if you remember that day of our podcast, I walked right out and went across the street and sat in about 15 minutes of y'all's council meeting, or whatever they called, alderman meeting, and just told the guys, hey, I was visiting. I met a guy. We had a police officer we met earlier the day. I just want to say I forgot to get a picture of him, but I said, man, he was super awesome and giving us information about the hurricane, and we're gonna be leaving tomorrow. That was also the week of COVID too. But I met the mayor was there. We weren't in Orange Beach. We were in Folsom.
Fairhope.
Fairhope. Yeah, and the mayor was there, and look, man, you can watch the video of our city council meetings tonight. There won't be 20 people there. There's very few cities where there'll be more than 20 people.
Why would you think people would find a Fairhope City Council meeting relevant, and how would that even remotely help your real estate business?
Well, I mean, there isn't probably 4 weeks that go by that annexation or taxes or something isn't mentioned in our meetings. You can watch them on video. But to go there and just say, this is Rusty Green. Rusty's a realtor in real life, and he's a city councilman for Columbus. He's been here half the life with us, blah, 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 blah. Here's a little information, a little bio of him for 30 seconds. Or you can take a selfie with him, but you can say, I met him tonight. And when your client, like mine does, has a problem with deed restrictions or variance, or needs their gutter cleaned or their sidewalk cleaned up or fixed, then you're one step closer to having a relationship with those people, and you're the person that they call. I said the proudest moment in my marketing career happened it's been 2019. Our Air Force Base had a July 4th event, and their country band was coming, and their 100,000 watt generator went out, which you can't just get at Lowe's. And they had the whole meeting. The base was there, everybody, and they're like, we should call Colin. And they called me, and I was on the way to Smith Lake, and my wife's like, why are you so excited? You don't even know what a generator looks like in a 100,000 watt generator. I'm like, well, they called me to solve the problem. They called me to get to the right person. Like, they should have called the mayor, but they figured, like, well, Colin knows a lot of people, and he does this, and he always promotes events. Let's see what he can do.
All right. So a little bit of recap here, and I got another question. you're using very little video. It's mainly just photos. It's consistent photos, and it's consistent photos that are documenting positive things. You know, one of your mantras, Colin, is make positivity louder. So sharing good news, recognizing people that give him great service at a restaurant, you know, and just, you know, promoting them on social media. But one thing I wanted to ask you though is that how do you get around the icky factor of promoting the fact that you're helping a person or solving a problem? Like if you're documenting yourself, you know, helping somebody, is that a little icky? And I'm going to give you my answer first, and I want you to give your answer. But my answer is that if my content inspires somebody to do something positive or helpful for somebody else, then it's a win. Okay. What would you?
Yeah, well, I don't take pictures of myself doing events. So there's one restaurant in town that my buddy owns that we take a picture with a big check at the end of every fundraiser. I'm in those, but you're not going to see a picture of me going #blessed selfie. Like worked at the food line today. It's just so nice to see. You're not going to find it. It's just not there. Really, the only selfies you'll see more in the last 6 months than the previous 3 years since I've been on the TV station, because that's part of what it is for the TV. But that's one post a week. And my real estate page is pictures of my face, but that's what it says on there. It's going to be pictures of my face. I get credit, and I've posted this for years, for far more than I deserve. I'll take all the best realtor awards, but they've given me like community hero and best volunteer, to the point that I have to lobby for other people now, because I am most of the time is going to other people's events and taking pictures of them. So there's almost no delineation from when I'm helping or not helping. You know what I mean? Like I'll go to another fundraiser and I'll be like, the guys from this real estate office are awesome. Look at all the money they raised, blah, 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 blah. And somebody in there will be like, thanks, Colin. And you don't know if they're saying thanks for sharing their friend's post or thanks for that. Now, if you sit there and do the I'm here doing this or I'm here doing that, but, you know, there a small percentage of people are going to think that all the time, like no matter what I do, and I can't fix them. That's the part of, you know, don't act like you care, actually care part.
But when you take selfies of yourself, true or false, correct me if I'm wrong here, it's more to make people laugh. It's more like funny, self-deprecating, things like that.
Yeah. And then sometimes like the TV station, but I don't know if I've ever taken a selfie at an event. And like all the time people are like, hey, do you want to take a picture with so-and-so? And I'm like, man, I get too much exposure already. And that's, you know, that's over time that happened. Look, I know why people post it. Is like people do post. I'm at the thing because they want attention. My new phrase that I need to trademark for, I keep saying it out loud, but we're going to make cups and t-shirts, is everybody deserves attention. And that goes from the most sincere crying thing in your heart. That means your houses need attention, like other realtors need attention. You know, everybody deserves to be promoted and have that viral moment for being a hero or for doing a good deed or whatever. It's the thing that makes you feel good about that stuff. And if you can have that feeling attached to you all the time, like people all the time, when I started in real estate, the first time I posted a video about a St. Patrick's Day fundraiser, every one of my wife's friends like just said, I had no idea Colin was funny. They just thought, and they'd been to my house and seen him, and they just saw me at work every day, and they just didn't know. And so if you're not sharing, you're not going to find that percentage of the population that finds New Balance dad shoes funny.
Can you, is it possible for you to give us your one thing in one word? The thing you're primarily focused on in one word? Maybe 3 words max?
Interactions up there. You know, I used to say all the time I wanted to meet everyone in the world. But I'm more heavy on this than ever after COVID, is that you have to do this in real life. We're spending so much time trying to spend $399 to avoid doing work or get online leads, that if you just loved on the 20 people who love you and just went and saw them and promoted their restaurant or said what was awesome, not even spending money, just saying telling other people how awesome they are, you'll win. Now, like, I know that some people, they need deals today, but you know, if you went to a hospital with a basket of cookies and handed out cookies and flyers for some listing in your office, if you have nothing else, and then took pictures of people at the hospital and said how awesome they were, even without the photos, people are going to see that you're working if you're wearing your name tag. You should wear some branded stuff and name tag if you got it. I forget all the time,
do
but
you try to remember to wear it as much as possible?
oh dear God,
Because it
yeah, I'm
starts
not wearing it.
conversations. What you said, though, I just want to bring it back into, the common language that we use around here on this call is conversations. So I really feel like the one thing for you is just daily conversations, a commitment to interacting with people. The content sparks conversations. The name tag sparks conversations. You bought a tiny smart car that you can probably barely fit into. It's one of those tiny, tiny little. What is it? Can you fit more than two people in that thing?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of room inside because there's only two seats, but yeah, it's half the size of a normal car. So
I thought it was like ridiculous.
yeah, it's
But
absurd.
that's the point, that it's going to start conversations. You drive that thing around, you park it places so it gets visibility.
I
Uh,
don't drive it. Don't drive a branded car to a listing appointment. Little note from your Uncle Colin, because if you drive your branded car to a listing appointment, every realtor in town will know you're at a listing appointment.
that's funny. All right. Is there any other questions before we let Colin go? You can raise your hand. You can put it in the chat. Ask him anything, and we'll start the unmuting process. Other than that, we'll let him get back to his busy day. I'm going to have plenty to
Hey,
say about
don't
this moving
tell.
forward.
Look, that's another thing. Don't tell people I'm busy. Busy is not a badge of honor. Busy means you don't return phone calls. I got a lot going on with three teenage daughters and a somewhat sick wife, and now 11 pendants. But I'm never too busy for your referral. I'm never too busy. Look, you're getting a call or text back from me by 6 o'clock tonight. I've only probably had 2 or 3 days in my career. I've had stuff where the text is, I don't have time to solve this problem today. But
Well, and
I'm calling you back.
I know you're an abundant guy, and I've encouraged some people to reach out to you on a one-on-one basis, because I know that's where they feel comfortable asking questions or engaging. But to pick your brain, this is one of the areas of that would be like, this is the lane I'm kind of on. Am I on the right path with this? Do I have the right approach to this social media, objective? So would you be comfortable sharing how people can get in touch with you for
Yeah,
some
I've
one-on-one?
had, I think we've done 3 podcasts like this and 4 or 5 events, and I've done 5 other speaking events. The last 5, people were crying at the end, and I got a whole emotional tie-in with the wife and all this other stuff. And less than 10 people have called me. So I'm pretty rough on people when they ask for this, but my number is 662-329-SOLD. That's my website. That's my license plate. It's my dog's middle name. It's my Facebook page too. The reason I share everything is because most of you aren't going to do it.
So I think it's very telling about our industry is that it's not the interest rates, it's not the inventory, it's not Trump or Biden, it's not wars, it's not climate change. It's none of that if you're consistent. I mean, this is the key here, but most agents are just not committed. They're interested. And I do want to point this out before we go, that Colin said that his commitment, his motivation, his big why is his wife and kids. But I want to let you know it's okay if your big why is 11 pendings. Colin just mentioned that, he probably closed one or one fell off, but that's the beauty of having a lot of pendings. If like they all don't work out, you still got 11 more. But what would 11 pendings do for your life? It's okay for you to find motivation in that. It's okay if your motivation is selfish. And hopefully,
Well, that's in my daily affirmations.
what's that?
Being financially stable is in my daily affirmations. So yeah, now I used to put a number on it, but I'd be upset if I didn't do 70 deals this year. And that is, I don't know if that's part of my identity, and my coach is trying to dig through it, as is my therapist. But there's fine to be motivated by that. I do tell people who ask me about that, where you just quit trying for easy and go for simple. Like, everybody's trying to do this thing where all these leads come out of the woodwork, and you're like, they're crap leads, and they don't want to talk to me. I'm like, because they weren't prepared. You literally have better luck. What's the FCC is clamping down on Zillow and them. I think in 2021 they sold almost 50 million paid real estate leads. 50 million. Do you know how many transactions happen a year? 4.2 in 2021, our best year ever. Like, They're selling stuff to multiple people. And like I have a $200 of just BS ads on Zillow, but as soon as the buyer's agency thing kicks in, it's off. Like they're way less valuable than they were ever less valuable for me. And there'll be pockets of other places to go, but you can have a lot of people nipping at your heels trying to take money away from you. And if you, as I've said from day one, I want to be the last guy standing. If we lose 90% of realtors, I'm going to be the 10%. And you just decide whether you want to be, in my mind, 80% of realtors are pretty good. They're honest folks. 10% really hurt you and 10% really help you. Just pick where you want to be, because it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy.
All right, I'm going to share some of these resources he's talked about. I've got one of these trainings on YouTube that's really, really good. And I'll be sharing some recaps and some information on my personal Facebook page and in the Blueprint Collab community. So y'all check back for that. Colin, thank you so much. And get back to your productive and not busy day.
All right.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
talking.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, brother.